Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 78 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, we are talking to my friend Rob Kellett, who writes under Robyn Kelly. And he is just darling. He's one of those people that you meet him and you just want to claim him for a friend, which is a problem I have. I have an addiction to that. I do like to claim people and bring them in and hug them and talk to them. And it's just awesome that I get to do this job and that sometimes people let me do that. So we had a delightful talk and I know you're going to enjoy it. A little bit of an update is not much update as this is only a few days after I've recorded my last episode. I'm trying to get a little bit ahead of schedule since I'm trying to take the month of March off. Oh my goodness. It's not easy, this whole trying to do a month's worth of work before the month actually occurs. But I've got the class that I'm teaching at Berkeley all set up. I spent today doing that. I've really been struggling in a really good way, a fun way, with writing a proposal for my next book. I have two books in mind. One is lightweight and sweet and set in Venice, which I hope somebody buys on proposal because I don't want to write it on spec, which means that you write it before you have sold it. I am terrible at writing on spec because I can draw that out forever. If you write it on spec, there is no deadline. Therefore, I will finish the book in 72 years. And the other one is a darker family thing, more in line with my other mainstream lit stuff. So I would really like to write both of those books. And since the thriller is out of my hands and I'm not going to touch it for a while, I hope I have some time to think about this. So yesterday, I'm writing about this for my writer's email. So if you're on my email list, you may hear about this as well. But yesterday I got in the tub for work and just started making notes about the books that I want to write. And I tell you what, I have not spent a more enjoyable 3 hours in a long time. 3 hours in the tub, just, adding a little cool water here, adding a little hot water there, getting out to get a snack and to let the dogs out and make another cup of tea and then jumping right back in. It was pretty much heaven. And as I always say, I can't believe that they let me do this. And they do. I'm doing it. It's fantastic. And some of that is due to your help, dear patrons. I want to thank my new patron. Her name is so fantastic, Dahlia von Dolenberg. Isn't that wonderful? Just pledged. Thank you, Dahlia. Your guys' support means the world to me. It's at patreon.com/Rachael. And thanks to all of you who help me do this creative work. If you do pledge over there at $1 a month, you get the essays that I'm writing, the book that I'm writing, Replenish, on refilling the creative well of your soul, which I'm very much enjoying doing. And I'm launching into writing the next chapter, which is about music and the band that I've joined. That's this month's essay. So I'm looking forward to writing that. I've also got to write an article that is due, I think, next week. Just trying to pull things together and very much enjoying this seat that I'm sitting in. I don't have anything else to tell you, so I will encourage you to get some writing done. Get up early tomorrow, just 15 minutes, just 20 minutes. Get a couple hundred words in before you go to work, before you walk the dogs. I know that you can do it. This is your heart's desire. That is why you're listening to writing podcasts. And I know that you have a voice that only you can put on the page, and I want to support you and encourage you to do it. Now, please listen and enjoy Rob, who tells us how he does it. And I absolutely know that you're going to want him as a friend too. So you know what? Do it. Reach out to him. Read his book. Send him an email. Okay, y'all. Happy writing to you. We'll talk soon. Okay, everybody. I could not be more pleased today to welcome my friend Rob Kellett to the show. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
I'm so glad to have you here. Right before we got on the air, he was saying that he has a little bit of an imposter syndrome, and I'm going to tell you why that shouldn't be true. But let me give you a little bit of an introduction first. Rob Kellett is the self-published author of the Best Laid series, which is a genius title, which he describes as a rom-Dom-com again, genius, written under his pseudonym Robyn Kelly. He hopes to earn enough money with his writing to buy a tweed jacket with leather patches on the elbows to really live the fantasy writer's life. Since he doesn't have aspirations of becoming a full-time author, he's as surprised as you are to be invited on the show. Rob was a computer programmer before it was fashionable and has found his true calling doing accounting for an event firm in San Francisco. In his spare time, he spends too much time researching and not enough writing. And I actually really love that you said that about having no aspirations to become a full-time writer, because I think the vast majority of my listeners are not full-time writers. Many of them do not have aspirations to become, so they just want to write. And I've been writing for professionally for 12 years, and I've only been full-time for 2 years. However, I will say that that's always where I wanted to end up. So, but I just think you're fantastic. And I started one of your books last night, and it's so good and funny. And rom-Dom-com. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the way I write is my writing is reactive. So I read something and I reimagine it. And I read 50 Shades of Grey. And this was before I was writing. I've talked to a lot of people and everyone always says, oh, I haven't read it. You know, no one admits to
I have never met anyone who admitted to reading it.
And so I was reading it with a reader's eyes, not with a writer's eye. But the first thing that struck me is, here is a book. It's not really that well written, and it let me let go of that perfectionism that's held me back from writing.
I love that.
And so I thought of it, what if this was a romantic comedy? And that's why I call it a rom-Dom-com. Which
is the best. It's absolutely the best.
So when I was writing it, you know, I decided it had to be 3 books like the original. Mm-hmm. And whenever I got stuck on something, I have to go back to the source material. So I would just take everything in the source material and just twist it. So everything in Jackson's closet is gray because he's colorblind, not because he's so structured. And that way his tie will always match his suit, right? He never has to worry about things clashing. So it's just that kind of thing. And so following the book, there's a wedding in the 3rd book.
I love that. I love that you're doing this. And Rob and I are friends because we are both on our local RWA board. And I'm just so tickled to have you here today. And this show is about process. So I know that you have the full-time day job, but I would love to talk to you about how you get your writing done. What is your writing process?
I don't have a process because of the 3 books, they were each done differently. Ooh. So the first book I wrote, I set my alarm an hour early and I would write for an hour before work. And then after work, I'd come home and work till late in the night. And on the weekends, I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And I think that was partly because I had tried to write books before. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be a published author, but I didn't have a story to tell. Mm. So I was putting the cart before the horse. So this time I had the story to tell, and I had to get it out as fast as possible because I was afraid it would end up like all the other books. I'd get 1 chapter done and wouldn't know where to go. So now I'm saying as fast as possible. It took me a year. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just wrote it. And then it's like, oh, I need an editor. And so when I'm calling editors, it's, what do you mean I have to wait 2 months to get on your schedule? Aren't you free now? So I got that first book done. So it was very structured, but also at that time, my dog had died. Oh, God. So I had all this spare time and I was just filling it up with writing. Mm-hmm. The second book, and this is, I know you're going to ask me later about good advice and bad advice.
Let's jump to that now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any bad advice unless it's advice that makes you stop writing, but there is inappropriate advice.
Ooh, I like this. Tell me more.
Because someone told me to do NaNoWriMo.
Probably me.
Probably you. And I would say that's bad advice now because so I plotted I'm not a plotter, I'm a pantser, but I knew some scenes I wanted in my book. So I went into Scrivener, which I bought, and I did the index cards of what I was writing. And November 1st, I sat down and started typing, and it was going along great. I'm looking down, I was like 800. Oh, great. This typing. And I got to 1400, and I thought, people are always talking about how difficult this is. It was characters. It wasn't words. I only had about 300 words. And at that point,
okay, I almost just fell out of my chair.
and at that point, I was just like, I was so discouraged. I just slammed the door shut, the laptop, because I work best with deadlines, but word counts throw me off because it's not how I work. And so that's why, for me, NaNoWriMo is bad advice, but it's not bad advice.
I love that you say that, though. So many people are driven by word count, and then so many people are not. They're driven by time in the chair or a deadline like that. And I love that you say that, because I have to remember not everyone is driven by word count. If you tell me to write 2,105 words, I will write 2,104 and begrudge the last one, but I'll do it. That's how you push me into it. So I'm sorry that I gave you that advice. I'm sorry that all of writing world gives you that advice.
But it's great. That's why I say there's no bad advice. Yeah. I'm glad I tried it, because now I know at this point that process doesn't work for me.
Now, how about the third book then? How did you do that one?
After the second book, I was depressed finishing that book. And I heard someone say once I had a book-shaped hole in my heart. Oh. And I don't know if it was the book, if it was because it was November, so it was election year. Oh. And or the fact that I had to write that third. And just that process of getting started again was kind of depressing, because when I finished the third book, I didn't have any of that. Okay. I was excited. So the third book, the thing is, the way I write is, it's the old adage, write what you'd like to read.
Yes, the best. Yeah.
And what I like to read is things where I don't know what's next. So that's how I write. That's why I'm a pantser, right? I don't know what's coming. And the characters do their own little dance and decide what they're going to do. But sometimes I just have to give them time. I just have to let them percolate in the back. And it's what I'm doing now. I had this idea for a book, and I had started writing it, but there was something missing. And I thought, I'm just going to put it aside. And then I came up with something I can do with one of the characters that would add a lot of layers, and it's got me excited about the project again. So,
that's awesome.
And I tend to write more like sketch comedy, in that I think of each scene with a beginning, middle, and end, right? So I think about it, I want a scene where, I don't know how far you got in the first book, but with Lois naked in the kitchen, and Jillian comes into that was a whole scene. And it, of course, ended with her and Luke going off together. But then I didn't know what was going to come next again. So I will write what I'm in the mood for, and sometimes I'll skip ahead and sometimes I'll skip back. But that's how I think. I think if it's, to me, it's more segments, which is why my books are not tightly plotted. I mean, they're sort of rambling highways and then somehow magically at the end everything gets tied up
and purely enjoyable. So I'm just enjoying enjoying the heck out of it. So, and I'm always quite jealous of people who can leap ahead and then go back and move to what you want to write, because I am one of those purely linear writers. It has to be in a line, chronological, and anything else kind of breaks my brain. So, and I'm always trying. Someday I'm going to get there, because I think, to me, looking into that world, that seems like an ideal way to go, because then you're always writing what you want to write, instead of writing that interstitial scene that probably doesn't belong there anyway if you don't want to write it.
Which is, the connective tissue, I call it. Yes. That's hanging everything together. But for the second book, again, I was writing it more as I felt a scene. But I booked my editor ahead of time, and that gave me the drive to finish it.
Excellent. So you had the deadline.
I had the deadline, and it really helped. But the problem was I hold off on my sex scenes till the end.
Me too.
Because I don't want to repeat the same words.
Yeah.
I want each to be different. But if I write one a month ago and one now, I don't know if the shaft of his manhood is going to show up more than once.
Yeah, I just write sex scene in brackets, and then I go back to it. Yeah, I always have a purpose. I know what needs to happen emotionally within that sex scene, and then I just pretend that happened. Mm-hmm. And then when I write sex scenes, I have like 2 glasses of wine. I never drink when I'm writing because I think it's a poor idea in many Hemingway-ish cases. But I get myself in the mood and then write them all at once.
But 6 is exhausting. Yeah. 6 over a weekend is exhausting.
Yeah, no, I usually only have 2 or 3 in my books.
So on the 3rd book, I booked myself a cruise, a 10-day cruise to Mexico. And I had the room to myself. I didn't go with anybody.
Oh, lovely.
And the great thing about cruises is like they're summer camp for adults.
I've never been on one.
Because all you do is you wait to be fed or entertained. So I would sit in my room. Sometimes I sat on the deck because I never got off the ship. We stopped at like 4 places in Mexico. I never got off the ship. Sit in my room writing, and then I'd give myself one treat. So they showed 3 billboards, and they showed Dunkirk. So so I would see a movie or a comic that day. And I just went from beginning to end and put in all that connective tissue, the stuff that's boring, to get from point A to point B. But when I was writing full time, and that was probably the only time I did it for an extended period of time, I was afraid I'd dry up, but it just kept coming. I was really amazed how I think my muse likes the water.
I think you should remember that and take her to the water more often.
It's expensive.
I know.
I'm glad it.
But I'm glad that you say that too. I do believe that the more we write, the more just burbles up from underneath. Annie Dillard has that line, spend it all, play it all, save nothing for later. Because I'm always, well, I don't want to, should I say this now because it's so good I could use it later? But no. If you use it now, something even better will come up to be in the next scene. Yeah. Right. So what is your greatest challenge in writing?
Just finding something to write about, finding something to say. I think that's my biggest challenge because, again, I tend to think of things in a comic way, mm-hmm. but comedy doesn't give you enough to build a story on. You need characters. You need them to have drives, and so that what's the theme of the book? Mm-hmm.
That's the hard stuff for revision.
Yeah, that's the hard stuff.
Yeah. What's your greatest joy?
I watched you do a podcast, and you were talking about how you never go back to read your old books.
Oh God, no.
But there's some scenes that I wrote that I love to read again. They just crack me up.
Love that.
And I love it because it's like I don't know how I did it.
Isn't that a delicious feeling?
That's the delicious feeling.
I don't go back and reread the old books, but I definitely reread the draft so many times. And I do recognize that feeling when you read a scene and you're like, that is better than I thought I could have been. Who was in the seat driving? Because mm-hmm. I don't remember doing that. Yeah. Oh, I love that. What is, can you share a quick craft tip of any sort?
I was at a retreat. You were at that writer's retreat too.
Which was great. You actually wrote and I screwed around instead, but.
But I sat next to a writer and she was going, oh, this is crap. Oh, this is awful. Oh, this is terrible. And I wrote 500 words, but there's only 2 usable ones, and that sort of thing. And I was like, I wanted to tell her this is another reason I think why I write is because I can never think of what to say in the moment. But boy, the next day I can have that conversation in my head and I will convince them. But I wanted to say, don't insult your muse.
Yeah.
It just get it. I like rewriting. So to me, having a crappy first draft is fine.
Me too. Me too. And I could call it a crappy first draft. I don't feel like I'm diminishing my muse by saying, wow, that's a crappy first draft. But because I believe that's the way it should come out. But what you're talking about is like denigrating the actual action and doing of the writing. And it's already hard enough.
It's already hard enough. And you don't need that internal critic externalized.
Yeah.
And then another tip, that wasn't meant to be a tip, but that came up anyways.
I like it.
I got one of these.
Is that the new Alpha Smart?
No, it's an Alpha Smart. It's the Neo.
Okay.
But I mean, new, I think it came out in the 90s.
Oh, so okay.
So these were used in schools like to teach typing, or I guess you could do tests on them and things too. You can find them on eBay for about $20.
And I've heard literally you can drop them out of airplanes and they'll still work.
Probably. I've got one I bought where the S key doesn't work. And so I would not.
That's problematic. So for people who don't know what those are, tell us about it.
I don't know how much you can see with this, but you only get a few lines of text. Mm-hmm. So if you're the kind of writer who, when you're writing, you get distracted by rewriting, this has helped me because all I can do is go forward. I can't revise. And the other thing is I can sit anywhere in the house with this because it uses 3 AAA batteries that never seem to go out. And I can close my eyes and just picture the scene in my head and just start typing. I was at one of our RWA meetings, they were talking about how they wrote when they were stuck. And she said, I'd lay down on my bed and put face down and put my hands in front of me and just type without looking.
I don't remember that.
and so that's sort of what I do with the Neo. I mean, I don't lay face down, but again, I'm not looking at what I'm writing. I'm just, because I tend to write conversations. Mm-hmm. To me, dialogue always comes first. So for me to hear that conversation, get it down, and then I'll put in the he said, she said, she shrugged her shoulder, he raised an eyebrow.
Now, okay, so I don't have one, and you've convinced me yet again to go look for one. What you do is then you just connect it with a cable to your computer and drag those words into your document. Is that right?
Yeah, they have. I'm not here to sell. I make no money on these. They have 8 files that you can do. So you can, for one file, you could do one scene, a different file, you can do another. Uh-huh. And the connector is just the same connector you use your printer for. That's kind of square one that goes to a USB. But it's very old school in that when you plug it in, you have to be in a word processing program, and then you hit send, and it's just like it's typing each.
Oh, I love it.
You cannot surf the net while this is going. You have to just let it type. It's just simulating keystrokes, right?
Oh, I get it now. I get how it works now. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, I'm going to go to eBay before I publish this episode so I can grab one. And then everybody else can go get one. When you have self-doubt or dark days, how do you handle that?
I usually don't write. I mean, to me, if I'm having self-doubt or dark days, what's the point of beating myself up more by sitting in front of the computer and not being able to come up with anything?
Oh, I want to be that someday. I usually end up in front of the computer.
Of not being. I mean, it takes me a year to write each book. Well, the first one took me like 58 years, but it takes about a year to write each book. So I've got time. Yeah. It's when to stop. That's the issue. When it's time to just go and put it all together.
That is the eternal question, because we could keep working on these books forever, and
that's the wonderful thing about e-publishing is you can go back.
Yes, absolutely, you can go back and re-upload.
Maybe I'll make his eyes blue instead. So in the next book, when I said they're blue, people won't be telling me.
I literally had and no one's ever noticed it, and now somebody will. But in the 5th book of a series, which was traditionally published, there was an eye color that was a direct hereditary clue to the plot, which I realized after the book was published was wrong. It was because they had these startling emerald eyes, but in book 1 they were blue. So, I'm still
blue. Teal.
If you could not write or have the profession you have now that you love, If you could be anything in the world, what would you be?
A professional mattress tester. Can you imagine going to work, sleeping on the job? You get up, you leave work, and you've got 16 hours all to yourself.
Is there really such a job? Are you making that up, or am I gullible?
You said anything I want, so I went.
I love it. And now I want to write a story about that person. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Especially if the person was a narcoleptic.
Or better yet, they're poor, so they're doing a lot of overtime. So they're getting too much sleep. Think about that, I got to put in, I'm going to work this weekend.
I'm going to do a swing shift. I'm going to do a double. Boy, am I not tired. What is the best book you've read recently and why?
I am famous for not finishing books.
Ooh, good. Me too.
I start a book and I see where it's going, but that's also because I'm usually doing the 99-cent books on like BookBub and things like that. So it's like I'm just checking out what other people are writing. The last book that most influenced me, I read Gentlemen Prefer Blondes by Anita Loos, which was written in 1925.
Okay.
It was, the movie was based on that. And what I loved about it, it's written first person past tense because she's writing in her diary about what's going on. And she travels to Paris and she travels to London, and she's a gold digger. And she has a friend, Dorothy, who's who just likes fun. She doesn't care about the money. She just likes, to have fun. And even though the lead, she's dumb. She's the dumb blonde prototype. She goes to Paris and she sees the Eiffel Tower, and in her diary she puts EYEFULL, the Eiffel Tower, right? And
which is actually kind of a great name for it. It is an Eiffel.
It is. It's full of spelling mistakes because it's her diary. It's full of run-on sentences, and the voice was so unique, because I'd never read anything like that before, that I used it in my third book, because Jillian in the third book, she's always reading contemporary romance on her Kindle. And then she gives the synopsis, and it's sort of in that voice where she's talking about, the dragon. She was reading a Dragon Shifter book, and she was like, and they're fighting over who's going to be king, but I don't know why dragons need kings, because I didn't think reptiles were pack animals.
That's adorable.
So it's that.
I'm going to have to pick that up. It is a book that has survived for a long time because of that reason, I'm sure. There's a
lot of references to movie stars of the era, politics of the era, events of the era. There is, it may not be always politically correct.
I'm sure.
So just take it
of the era, 1925, yeah.
But when it's funny, it's hilarious. It really is.
That's awesome. Thank you. And where can we find you and your work? Tell us about that.
I'm on robynkellyauthor.com, and that's Robyn with a Y.
And Kelly with an E, right?
Kelly.
Oh, just Y. Just no.
I should remember. I'm terrible with names, including.
No, you're right. It is Kelly, Kelly.
And I'm going to warn viewers. I am my profile. Impersonate a woman online.
Talk to me about this. This is super interesting. So you impersonate a woman online, and why is that?
Not in a creepy way. Okay.
Right. You're really not creepy, my friend.
I don't want Robert Mueller coming after me, but because I was doing the 50 Shades of Grey theme, it was first person from the female point of view. And I was finding when people were reading it, if they knew a man wrote it, it would freak them out. I mean, they couldn't relax into it because it was like, this is creepy.
Yeah.
And I understand that, because when I've read some male romances and I know a straight woman has written them, I'm like, wow. But I eventually forget it and I get into the book, right? I don't hold on to that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, I thought I could just be androgynous, but when I was setting up Facebook and Twitter, they were all asking, what's your sex? And I I had to commit to one or the other. So
that is
for
really
this
too
series
bad.
of books, yes. So I think I think my next book's going to be a male, and if I do that, I will probably change the name. Like it'll be, well, I can't use R. Kelly.
You can't use R. Kelly. Yeah. But you could go Robyn with an I.
I could go Robyn with an I.
Since it is gender free. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I originally did the Robyn with the Y because it was an old English spelling, an old male English spelling, but it was also androgynous. But
yeah.
So yeah, I just went with it.
Well, you are the best. It is. Oh, tell us the names of your books too, because they're great.
Best Laid Plans, Best Laid Hopes, and Best Laid Dreams.
I just love that. I love it. And I adore you. I think you're the bee's knees. And
I think you're the sweetest person too. I mean, there are some people when you walk into a room, they're just happy and smiling. You're one of those people. And
normally, ask my wife. Sometimes I'm growling. I can growl real well.
Oh, you can.
I can. All right, Rob. Well, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye.